Jamal thought he was just being kind, just helping out a stranger in need. He had no idea that one small act was about to change his entire life. A young black teen saw a rich businessman stranded on the side of the road. Other people passed by, ignoring him, but Jamal stopped to help. He didn't expect anything in return. He just did what felt right. But what happened next? No one saw it coming. Before we dive into this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. And if you love inspiring stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because in the end, this wasn't just about fixing a flat tire. It was about destiny. Jamal Carter was just 17 years old, but he already knew what it meant to struggle. He grew up in a small apartment with his mom and younger sister. Money was always tight. His mom worked long hours at a diner, doing her best to keep food on the table. Jamal dreamed of going to college, of making a better life for his family, but deep down, he worried. College wasn't cheap, and no matter how hard he worked, some dreams just felt out of reach. But that never stopped him from trying. Jamal wasn't the kind of kid to sit around and complain. He believed in doing the right thing, no matter what. If you can help someone, you help, his mom always told him. And that's exactly what he lived by. That's why, when he was walking home from school one hot afternoon and saw a car pulled over on the side of the road, he didn't think twice. It was a fancy car, a black luxury sedan, the kind Jamal had only seen in movies. The driver, a middle-aged man in a crisp suit, was standing beside it, looking frustrated. He was struggling with a flat tire, wiping sweat off his forehead as he fumbled with the tools. Jamal could have kept walking. Other people did. Cars passed by, some slowing down for a second before moving on. Nobody stopped, but Jamal did. He hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. "Need some help, sir?" The man turned, eyeing him carefully. He was older, maybe in his 50s, with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. His suit alone probably cost more than everything in Jamal's closet. The man, William Anderson, narrowed his eyes. "You know how to change a tire?" Jamal nodded. "Yeah, done it a bunch of times for my mom's car." William seemed unsure. Maybe it was the fact that Jamal was just a kid. Maybe it was the hoodie he was wearing, the backpack slung over his shoulder. But after a moment, he stepped aside. "Be my guest." Jamal didn't hesitate. He set his backpack down, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. As he loosened the lug nuts and jacked up the car, he could feel William's eyes on him, watching, studying him. But Jamal didn't mind. He just focused. 15 minutes later, the new tire was on. Jamal wiped his hands on his jeans and stepped back. "There you go, all set." William looked at the car, then at Jamal. "That was fast," he said. Jamal just shrugged. "I've had practice." William reached into his pocket, pulling out a crisp $100 bill. "Here, for your help." Jamal glanced at it but shook his head. "No, thanks." William frowned. "You sure?" Jamal nodded. "I didn't do it for money. Just seemed like the right thing to do." William studied him for a long moment. Most people wouldn't have turned down cash, especially not a kid. Something about that stuck with him. Jamal grabbed his backpack and started to walk away. And William? He just stood there, watching him go, feeling like he had just met someone important, someone special. But he didn't know just how important this moment would become. Jamal didn't think about the man again. To him, it was just another day, another moment where he did what he always tried to do, help someone when he could. By the time he got home, he was back to reality. His mom was finishing up her shift at the diner, and his little sister was doing her homework at the kitchen table. The fridge wasn't exactly full, and their landlord had sent another warning about the rent being late. Jamal knew the truth. They were struggling. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he thought about the college application sitting on his desk. He had good grades. He had worked hard. But what did any of that matter if he couldn't afford tuition? It wasn't fair. But life wasn't fair. He sighed, rolled over, and forced himself to stop thinking about it. Meanwhile, across town, William Anderson couldn't stop thinking about Jamal. He was sitting in his office, going through his usual business reports, but his mind kept drifting back to that kid on the side of the road. Something about him had stuck. Maybe it was the way he worked, fast, efficient, like he had done it 100 times before. Maybe it was the way he turned down the money. Or maybe it was the fact that William had spent his whole life surrounded by people who only cared about wealth, about climbing the ladder, about what they could take. And then here was this kid, a kid who had nothing, a kid who had every reason to take the money, but didn't. That kind of character? That couldn't be taught. And that's when it hit him. He picked up his phone, called his assistant, and said, "Find out who that kid is." The next day, Jamal was sitting in class when his teacher called his name. "You're wanted in the office." Jamal frowned. He had never been in trouble before. What was this about? When he walked into the principal's office, he froze. Sitting there, dressed in a sharp suit, was the man from the roadside, William Anderson. Jamal's heart pounded. What was he doing here? "Have a seat," the principal said, smiling like he already knew something Jamal didn't. Jamal sat, feeling completely lost. William leaned forward. "You remember me, right?" Jamal nodded slowly. "Yeah. Your car broke down." William smiled. "And you helped me out, without asking for a thing." Jamal shrugged. "It wasn't a big deal." William studied him for a second, then pulled something out of his briefcase. A folder. He slid it across the desk. "Go ahead, open it." Jamal hesitated before flipping it open. And what he saw? His hands started shaking. Inside was a full-ride scholarship. A scholarship with his name on it. Jamal looked up, his voice barely a whisper. I don't understand." William smiled. "I was where you are once. A kid with big dreams, but no way to pay for them. Someone gave me a shot. Now it's my turn to do the same." Jamal couldn't breathe. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. "But why me?" he finally asked. William's smile didn't fade. "Because character matters. Because you helped me when you didn't have to. Because the world needs more people like you. And I want to make sure you have the chance to become the man you're meant to be." Jamal's eyes burned. His fingers gripped the folder tight. Because in that moment, for the first time in his life, the future didn't feel impossible anymore. Jamal sat there, staring at the scholarship papers in front of him. His mind was spinning. This couldn't be real. People like him didn't just get opportunities like this. But William was looking right at him, waiting for an answer. Jamal swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," William said. "Just think about it." Jamal's fingers tightened around the papers. "Why me?" William leaned back in his chair. "You ever hear the saying, 'Character is what you do when no one's watching'?" Jamal nodded slowly. "That's what you showed me that day," William said. "You didn't help me because you wanted something. You helped me because it was the right thing to do." Jamal shook his head. "But there are other kids who deserve this more. Kids who probably—" William cut him off. "Deserve? Let me tell you something, Jamal. I grew up poor. My family had nothing. I clawed my way up, and I know what it's like to feel like the world is stacked against you. But here's the thing. Opportunity doesn't come for the people who deserve it. It comes to the people who are ready for it. Jamal felt a lump form in his throat. William smiled. "And I think you're ready." Jamal opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the door to the office burst open. His mom rushed in, out of breath, eyes wide. The principal had called her, telling her there was someone at the school offering Jamal a scholarship. She had left work immediately. When she saw William sitting there, she froze. She recognized him. Not from TV, not from business magazines, but from years ago. Jamal frowned, confused by the look on her face. "Mom?" She shook her head, covering her mouth like she'd just seen a ghost. Finally, she whispered, "Will?" Jamal's heart nearly stopped. "Will?" William's face changed too. His confident, easygoing expression turned into something softer, something that looked like shock. He stood up. "Tasha?" Jamal looked between them. "Wait, you two know each other?" His mom nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "Yeah, baby. We go way back." William let out a breath. "I don't believe this." Jamal had never seen his mother look this emotional. She turned to him, grabbing his hands. "Jamal, listen to me. This man, years ago, before you were born, I knew him. And once, a long time ago, he helped me when I needed it the most." Jamal looked at William. "You helped my mom?" William smiled. "She helped me first." Jamal's mom wiped her eyes. "I was working at a diner, barely making ends meet. Will used to come in after his long shifts just to grab coffee. He wasn't rich back then. He was struggling, just like I was. But one day, I lost my apartment. I had nowhere to go. And Will, he gave me the little money he had and told me to get back on my feet." Jamal stared at him in disbelief. William chuckled. "Your mom wouldn't take it at first, just like you." Jamal's mom laughed through her tears. "Yeah, guess it runs in the family." Jamal looked down at the scholarship papers in his hands. This wasn't just some random act of kindness. This was fate. His mom had once been helped by the same man Jamal had helped all these years later. And now, that kindness was coming back around. William nodded at Jamal. "Your mother once told me something I never forgot. She said, 'The world is tough, but it's even tougher if we don't help each other.'" Jamal swallowed hard. His mom put a hand on his shoulder. "Baby, this is your chance. You take this." Jamal nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Okay." William smiled. "Good. Then it's settled." And just like that, Jamal's life changed forever. Jamal walked out of the principal's office feeling like he was in a dream. A few hours ago, he was worried about how to pay for college. Now he had a full ride, a real shot at a future. And the craziest part? It all started with a flat tire. As he and his mom got into their car, she was still shaking her head in disbelief. "Life is funny, isn't it?" she said. "I never thought I'd see Will again." Jamal looked at her. "Why didn't you ever tell me about him?" His mom smiled. "Because I never thought it mattered. I never expected anything in return." Jamal sat back, thinking about those words. That's exactly how he felt when he helped William. He didn't expect anything. He just did what felt right. And somehow, that kindness had come back to him in a way he never could have imagined. 4 years later, the crowd in the auditorium was silent as Jamal stepped onto the stage. He adjusted the mic, looking out at the hundreds of faces staring back at him. Some of them were students, just like he had been 4 years ago. Some of them were business leaders, people who had spent years climbing to the top. And in the front row, William Anderson sat with a proud smile. Jamal cleared his throat and began. 4 years ago, I thought college was out of reach. I had no way to afford it, no connections, no backup plan. He paused, scanning the crowd. But then something happened, something that changed everything. And it wasn't luck. It wasn't just being in the right place at the right time, he smiled. It was kindness. A few heads nodded in the audience. Jamal continued. I helped a man on the side of the road, a man who, years ago, had helped my mother when she needed it the most. And because of that, he changed my life. He gave me an opportunity that I thought was impossible. William nodded, his eyes filled with pride. But the real lesson here, Jamal said, is that we all have that power. We all have the ability to change someone's life, whether we realize it or not. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on to his every word. Jamal took a deep breath. Kindness is a ripple effect. One good deed can stretch further than you ever imagined. And today, standing here, I promise you, I'm going to keep that ripple going. The room erupted into applause. William stood clapping the loudest. Jamal stepped back, heart pounding. Because this was just the beginning. Jamal never could have imagined that one small act of kindness would change his life forever. He thought he was just fixing a flat tire. He didn't expect anything in return. But what happened next? It proved that good things come full circle. His mother once helped a man in need. Years later, that same man helped her son. And now, Jamal had a college degree, a future filled with opportunities, and a mission to pay it forward. Because sometimes life isn't just about what you take, it's about what you give. Now here's a question for you. Have you ever experienced a moment where kindness came back around? Have you ever helped someone, only to have something amazing happen later? Let us know in the comments. And if this story inspired you, hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe for more incredible stories of kindness, fate, and unexpected blessings. Because at the end of the day, one act of kindness can change everything.